I am
Chris Rubiera.
an ex-criminal, ex-rapper, ex-degenerate from the streets of New York City who eventually turned his life around. Now I'm on a mission to help and give back to those who may be lost like I was. A noble underdog is a person who never stops believing they are worthy of greatness, even when the whole world has counted them out, especially against all odds.
The Noble Underdog Podcast.
What's up, y'all? Today I want to discuss the Western Renaissance and what that means to me. I'm not sure if anyone else is using this term, but I feel very strongly that that's what is happening right now in society, and that's something that we actually need more of and something we should be fighting for. So, before I go into the Western Renaissance, I wrote this article. I'm going to read. I'm going to read a little bit of it and kind of just riff off of it from time to time. But before we discuss what the Western Renaissance is, let's kind of go back to what the actual Renaissance was. So, to many of us, the Renaissance is known as a period in history around the 15th and 16th centuries that marked the end of the Middle Ages and started the era now known as modernity. It's a period that conjures up nostalgic imagery of divinely inspired frescoes crafted by masters of linear perspective and larger than life sized sculptures depicting ancient heroes adorning the entrances of majestic looking cathedrals somewhere in Florence, Italy. But the Renaissance was much more than merely an aesthetically beautiful and transformational time for art. It also brought with it an educational reform and a resurgence of classical ideas stemming from Athens and Rome. In other words, there was a spike in intellectual pursuit and, through the lens of humanism, a desire to seek truth via new and innovative methods. Thus, the Renaissance can be thought of as a cultural movement that influenced philosophy, art, architecture, literature, music, science, technology, politics, and religion. An influence that can still be felt throughout the West today, many centuries later. All right, so that's the Renaissance. Now, what is the Western Renaissance? And when did it start? So, in my opinion, the Western decline, or when people started attacking the West, can probably be flagged somewhere around the 1980s, when there's this famous or infamous Stanford protest where uh, there was a very popular class called Western Civilization, and they would teach Western values and traditions and how we got here in that class, and it was done away with as part of the main curriculum in Stanford because of protests. Um, and I think that's about right when we started uh, facing an attack on Western traditions and values. And so the Western Renaissance is when we started fighting back against that attack, in my opinion. And in my opinion, the start of the Western Renaissance can probably be flagged somewhere around 2015 to 2017 with the rise of the intellectual dark web, a term coined by Eric Weinstein, an IDW member. This group was comprised of brilliant, disparate, and almost reluctant voices who basically all had one commonality between them. They objected fervently to the orthodoxy of the day, which happened to be postmodern radical leftism, otherwise known as wokeness or cultural Marxism, an ideology which was and still is permeating rampantly throughout Western culture. So the IDW, people like Jordan Peterson, Joe Rogan, Eric Weinstein, Brett Weinstein, um, Douglas Murray, who am I missing? Dave Rubin. Oh yeah, Ben Shapiro. I would say Barry Weiss is in there. I'm sure I'm forgetting some people, but basically it was just a group of folks who were in new media, who just said no, no. Jordan Peterson just said no. I'm not going along with this. Brett Weinstein also just said no. This is too much. You guys are going too far. When does the left go too far? For Joe Rogan, it was trans women in sports competing against women. Um, for Jordan Peterson, it was compelled speech. For Brett Weinstein, it was I forget what was it. It was about race relations. It was about he didn't feel it was correct to have white people not come to school, or saying that white people had to stay home. Some You can look into it, but basically all these people, they just said no to the wokeness, and that was about 2017. Um, Unfortunately, this group was short-lived, and some of its former members are actually not even on speaking terms anymore. Sam Harris is on that list. How could I forget Sam Harris? He is probably one. Him and Douglas Murray are probably, you know, and Jordan are probably the strongest on that list, in my opinion. Uh, Trump derangement syndrome aside for Sam, he is a powerful voice, and I think him and Dave Rubin don't even speak anymore. I'm not sure if him and Joe speak anymore, but they're no longer on speaking terms. Um, they are all, however, still very active in the battle of ideas and prominent voices in the current culture war. Today, it is 7 years since the unofficial formation of the IDW, and although the group has since dissolved, the threat to Western civilization has not. In fact, given recent chants by pro Palestinian activists explicitly shouting death to America, I would argue we are still in a fight for our civilization and in a fight for our lives. So, what is the Western Renaissance? It is regular folks like you and me becoming concerned citizens and picking up where the IDW left off. It's taking it upon ourselves individually to battle against the existential threat that targets our children and puts our future at risk. It is a resurgence of our classical origins and the core values that got us this far: personal freedom, an adherence to reason and logic, a basic acknowledgement, even a half hearted one, of our undergirding Judeo Christian roots, the right to own private property, the rule of law and constitutional government, a free market economy, and last but not least, an unabashed and unapologetic sense of national pride and Western chauvinism. That is the Western Renaissance. I write this with sincere hope that centuries from today, people will look back at the Western Renaissance as a period in the 21st century when the threat of the fall of the West was thwarted by everyday citizens who became involved in their own society, in their own culture, and saw that it was worth saving. Citizens who looked inside their own hearts and found the courage to take a stand. I submit this article as an affirmation of my own conviction to these ends, and as a pledge of allegiance to this country and to the Western values it was founded upon. Furthermore, I would align myself with anyone, man or woman, of like mind and of like purpose, who would also aim themselves at this imperative and be called a proud daughter or a proud son of the West. Let us rally our forces respectfully and dutifully as we raise again the powerful mantle left behind by that unlikely group in 2017.